Welcome to the NonFunGerbils Podcast, the show about digitally scarce gerbils, non-fungible assets, and the growing decentralised economy.
Welcome to episode 0, the introduction. George, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am George.
Great, I'm Luke. So should we start with what's the purpose of this podcast?
Yep. We both love NFTs, and we also really enjoy the whole cryptosphere as a whole. And so we thought we'd come together and explore this space through the medium of podcasting. And so the general plan is to have a special guest each episode who's deeply involved in the space and normally involved in a project that we like or is interesting in some way, shape or form.
And then we'll do show and tell, where we both go away and research a project that's interesting and come back and show it to each other. It'll be quick and concise. And
because there's now a lot of projects out there. So I think that would be useful. And then lastly, my God, gerbils.
Yeah, we're gonna have non-fungibles.
Yep.
And we're gonna give them away to our listeners.
Yep.
The people that interact with us.
In return for very clever and witty tweets.
Yeah.
That are describing the backstory for these gerbils.
So each gerbil is going to be the representation of something that's come out of crypto Twitter.
Yep.
Some sort of meme, an idea. An example is FOMO gerbil.
Yes.
Who will be one of the early gerbils.
Mm-hmm.
We've all experienced FOMO. Well, most of us have had FOMO if you've been in crypto for any period of time. And so we wanted to capture that, and we're going to put it out to the internet to come up with a backstory for FOMO gerbil.
A beautifully illustrated FOMO gerbil, I might add.
Yes.
And also my favourite, the gerbil of Wall Street.
Yes.
Which is going to be amazing, but no one's getting those tokens because I'm keeping them all to myself. Just so that you know.
Unless you can be funnier than George.
Well, it shouldn't be hard. We're gonna create these assets. I think it's a good thing because it gets me and you experimenting with the technology, actually going through the process of actually getting these things out there, and also getting feedback from everyone else as to how we could develop it and how it could grow.
Yeah. So how do we know each other? Where do we start?
We've known each other many years. We used to live next to each other.
As kids.
We used to share a love of mopeds.
Yes, and music, playing guitars and drums and
cigarettes and cider. Not a lot of cider, because that where we're from, you can get about half a pint before you fall over. So,
especially me,
especially you. Anyway, we've known each other for years, and then I fell down this rabbit hole in a big way in late 2011. Got
the Bitcoin rabbit hole.
The Bitcoin rabbit hole. That is. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. And got FOMO in a big way. Fear of missing out is something that you experience if you've been in this space longer than about 5 minutes. And I got it in a big way at the end of 2011 and pretty much dropped everything I was doing and decided I would follow this rabbit hole wherever it went. And then I remember Litecoin being created, and that was the birth of Bitcoin maximalism, because everyone was like, oh God, what's this? What's this new thing? Oh, we don't like it. But clearly the wider market had a different opinion, and it grew into this just gigantic sort of explosion of clone coins, what we call the shitcoin era. And I lived through that and thoroughly enjoyed it. We had a coin for casinos and coins for countries like Iceland, and we had even back then we had proof of stake coins as a concept, where you'd wake up every morning and you had a little bit more of some random coin in your wallet and everything went crazy. And that was my sort of initiation into it all. And then Ethereum happened, and you could immediately sense that there was something new about this particular project. There was a lot more focus on it, a lot more excitement, and I think it was about a year into Ethereum's growth to prominence, I guess, that I finally got you sat down and
you got me hooked.
Got you hooked.
Yeah. Yes.
And so since then we've been exploring it together.
In case there's people watching who haven't been involved in crypto, Bitcoin is the decentralized money, basically, permissionless and separate from state, which is I always thought was very important.
Yeah, well, it runs on this piece of technology called the blockchain, and it's morphed into various different platforms and protocols now, and Ethereum being one of them. We're concentrating on a particular area that's grown out of the Ethereum ecosystem called the NFT space. Should we talk a little bit about Ethereum just quickly?
Yeah, definitely.
So Ethereum was the brainchild of a guy called Vitalik Buterin, who at the time was like 5 years old or something. but maybe a touch older.
Maybe
but
17.
He was pretty young, and he came up with this a new design for a blockchain. So Bitcoin, is permissionless, censorship resistant, global. It doesn't care about borders. So it has these really unique properties about it. And what Vitalik wanted to do was create a platform that had those similar attributes to it, but was processing code rather than moving Bitcoins around. So they created a language, put it in the hands of some really clever people who come back with applications. And these applications, Ethereum works, I guess you could think of it a little bit like a server, in the sense that you create these applications, you put them on the blockchain, and the blockchain makes them tick and do stuff. So that sort of grew into thousands of applications. We're still growing, and there are growing pains. But we've seen it blossom into all manner of different experiments. And this particular area is part of that.
And so let's talk about fungible versus non-fungible.
Okay. So it's usually something that we sort of consider in terms of like money. So fungible is this idea that, I have a pound and you have a pound and they're the same thing. The wider system accepts them as the same value.
We can swap them and it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah. And they're also divisible. So I can buy a cup of coffee with £10 instead of £1 because coffee's so expensive, but you get my drift.
Yeah.
And non-fungible tokens are, the complete opposite of that, in the sense that they are completely unique items or completely unique tokens that represent unique digital assets. They are currently not divisible. And if I was to send you one, I no longer own it and you have it and it's under your control.
They can be a completely purely digital asset, or they can represent a physical asset. Yeah,
that's a great point. We're still trying to unravel exactly what that means. There is a sort of vision slightly further off of these assets, these digital assets representing physical items. How you tie the physical item to the token. These are still interesting questions that are being explored by lots of people in lots of ways, but certainly at the moment, if you were to take something which will appear in this podcast many different times over, will be the CryptoKitty as an example. It's a digitally native visual that is represented by a token. So it lives entirely in the digital space. There's no physical version of it that needs to be tied to the chain in any way.
And so CryptoKitties was the first big NFT to release on Ethereum, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, if we got the little bit of nerdy jargon out the way just super quick with the ERC 20 and the ERC 720. It's something that'll appear quite a lot over the conversations that we have in the following episodes.
Yeah, go for it.
ERC stands for Ethereum Request for Comment, which I'm not sure makes it any easier to understand. But put it this way,
something that it's been explained, and you can forget about it.
You can forget about it. So Ethereum Request for Comment number 20 designated this standardization of a fungible token on Ethereum. If you create an application on Ethereum, you can also create a token that goes with it, and it's basically the transfer of value, and the token is programmable so that it works within certain applications. The ERC 721 standard is similar in the sense that what it's trying to do is create a standard for explaining how a particular kind of token works. But the ERC 721 is standardizing the NFT token, so the non-fungible token. And in the same way, that ERC 20. Had we better explain what that noise is?
Yeah, that's a prompting gerbil.
That's prompting gerbil.
Yeah.
I do get very long-winded. Should you ever hear that noise, that's telling me to be quiet. Okay, fair enough. Okay, gotcha. Moving on.
Okay. So, crypto collectibles, basically. ERC 721s.
Yep.
Non-fungible tokens.
Yep. Digital scarcity.
Digital scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
You like collecting stuff, don't you, George?
I do. I think that's why I'm so interested generally in this space, because I feel like, in the physical world, I love things with provenance and story. I have lots of things that conjure up all kinds of memories in me, but also to some degree they have an effect on other people, So I guess a pertinent example would be my Ethereum badge. I have a small little metal pin of the original Ethereum logo, and it's numbered 86, and it was handed to me, by the Ethereum manager at the time, community manager at the very first London Ethereum meetup.
Wow.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I love it because it places me right there at the beginning with all those wonderful people who made it so interesting and hospitable to be part of that community in the early days. But it's now, it's grown into this huge sort of global movement of developers and technicians and engineers building wonderful things. And so this tiny little thing has sort of soaks up all of that greatness into this one tiny little thing.
And there's a kickback to before it was big. And
yeah. And so I do love that item, and I won't bore you with all the other stuff that I have, but generally speaking, it all tends to have a story behind it and is rare and scarce in some particular way. I guess I'm a bit of a magpie. That's how I sort of see value. And this whole sort of digital space opening up before me. Okay, I have been involved in the space quite a long time, so it's not like I'm coming to it fresh. But I can totally the transition from the enjoyment of physical scarcity over to the digital space feels completely natural to me. And quite apart from the fact that we're spending all of our time on the internet anyway. As the time application in my phone tells me, it's got some worrying numbers on it. So I'm spending quite a lot of time over here in the internet. But so it feels great, and I'm really excited because I think we're right at the beginning of this sort of shift in perception for digital scarcity, and it might come through gaming, it might come through the art world, or even perhaps physical assets, but those are the sort of the three main areas. But out of there is going to come an application or a game or something that really takes this space forward and pushes it out into the mainstream.
So we're gonna hopefully harness that.
Well, clearly, gerbils is going to be the thing that breaks it open.
Yeah, and bring you along for the ride, and you can explore it with us.
Absolutely.
Gerbils. Why non-fungerbils?
Well, because you always need something that's cute and fluffy. Yeah. Always. I do have a background in advertising, and the great thing about advertising is make it cute and fluffy, and the rest will work. So I've taken that into my new blockchain world, and we found something cute and fluffy. So that's all that matters. But aside from the fluffiness, it's actually more about distilling down the wit and the charisma from the internet, which, generally speaking, always produces something interesting.
The internet is funny.
It is. It has a bit of a dark side sometimes, but generally speaking, you can get some wonderful responses.
Like Boaty McBoatface.
That is a really good example. It's a wonderful story that where that it was like a gigantic boat, wasn't it? They spent millions on building this thing, and then they decided that, I know what we'll do. We'll go to the internet and have a competition to name it. Oh dear, that's a bad idea. Because of course the internet came out with Boaty McBoatface. I think they were expecting like Arctic Explorer 2 or Icebreaker or something like that. But instead they got Boaty McBoatface. And I think that's a wonderful example of how powerful the internet can be when you go and ask its opinion. And they could have run with it. It's so silly that they didn't do it, because they kind of backtracked, didn't they, and sort of tried to put it all under the carpet and say, oh no, we're going to name it. We're not going to name it that. We're going to name it something else. And of course the internet was furious. But they could have run with it, and they could have created a whole children's cartoon out of it and turned Boaty McBoatface into this big character that explains what's going on in the polar regions. But anyway, a missed opportunity. But yeah,
they missed the boat on that one.
Can I squeeze the? Yeah. Can I squeeze the? For bad pun. Okay, moving on. Yeah. So I think if we sow the seeds of these meme gerbils out there, we will get all kinds of things back, and I think that's funny. I think that could be really interesting.
Yeah.
And also potentially provide story and provenance to these little things that we're going to make and put out there. But it's an experiment. We shall see.
So next episode we're going to have a guest on, and we will do our show and tell.
Yep.
And we will give out the name of the first gerbil.
Yep. And
set out the guidelines how to come up with the story and submit it.
Yep. Which will be via our Twitter feed.
Yeah.
And hopefully that should get us some good content.
And then we'll on the following week we'll read out the best ones from each time.
And hand them away.
Yeah, and then send out the gerbils, which are non-fungible tokens.
Yes. So you'd need to give us your Ethereum public key.
Yeah. Great. Well,
it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for listening.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us. If you would like to follow us on Twitter, it's at NonFunGerbils. The website is nonfungerbils.com. You can contact us podcast at NonFunGerbils. There's a theme here. And yeah, we look forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Luke.
Cheers, John.